Mushoku Tensei Orsted Fun Facts Compilation. Before Rudeus was isekai to that world, there existed the six-phased world created by the creation god. It comprised the dragon world, demon world, beast world, ocean world, sky world, and human world. Each world was ruled by its own race god. In the demon world, a hybrid of demon and dragon races existed. Living a miserable life there, he was eventually discovered by the first dragon god, Orsted's father. Recognizing his mixed heritage of dragon and demon races, the dragon god, who cared deeply for his kind even though it was only a half-breed, brought him to the dragon world, raising him as his own child and later naming him the place. Since his arrival in the dragon world, the place has remained fiercely loyal and devoted to the first dragon god who saved his life, as well as to Lunaria, a human woman who is the dragon god's wife, Orsted's mother, and also the daughter of the human god. Despite not being related by blood, the place considers Lunaria his real mother, and likewise, Lunaria considers the place her son. At first, when the place arrived in the dragon world, he was still very wild. It was there that he received training from Dola, one of the dragon's generals. The 5 dragon generals, also known as the 5 dragon kings, serve as the personal confidants of the dragon god, assisting him in safeguarding the dragon world. After a considerable amount of time, the place eventually became a general himself, serving under the first dragon god. As time passed, the place experienced numerous events, culminating in the worst one, the murder of Lunaria. This tragic event enraged the dragon god, leading him to suspect other worlds and declare war against them. In his wrath, alongside his generals, he brought destruction to other worlds, committing genocide and eliminating other gods except for the human world. The survivors of the destroyed worlds were sent to the human world by the human god. After the prolonged war concluded, the place uncovered something suspicious about the situation and the true cause behind these events, which he promptly reported to the dragon god. The dragon god, suspecting the human god whom he initially thought was his ally, grew wary and eventually accused him of being the mastermind behind the tragic events, including the murder of Lunaria. However, just as the dragon god prepared to attack the human world and eliminate the human god, his own generals intervened, resulting in a conflict among themselves, and led them to fights on each will. The battle of the dragon generals and the first dragon god begins, and in the end, the first dragon god manages to defeat them, however, from behind. The first dragon god was cheap-shotted by the human god. Eventually, the truth emerged as the human god revealed that all of these unfortunate events were orchestrated by him. The false human god, Hitogami, also known as the man god, killed the original human god and somehow managed to take his power. He then proceeded to kill his daughter, Lunaria, and manipulated the other gods, inciting them to fight each other and bringing about the destruction of each world, all as part of his plan. As the dragon generals faced their mortality one by one, the dragon world teetered on the edge of destruction by Hitogami. Despite his battle wounds, the dragon god sent his infant son, Orsted, 10,000 years into the future to the human world. The place was entrusted with a mission to aid Orsted in the future human world. Faithfully following the first dragon god's final mission, the place prepared the knowledge for Orsted to confront and defeat Hitogami. Dying Dola, one of the dragon generals, who was wounded during their battle against the first dragon god, asked the place to also bring Perugia's egg to the human world. With the dragon world on the brink of collapse, the place swiftly ventured into the human world, driven by a sense of urgency and an intense hatred towards Hitogami. The dragon god then somehow managed to capture Hitogami and sealed him in the void world. He bestowed his son Orsted with a mission to kill Hitogami. The first dragon god also placed upon him a curse. The curse of being hated and feared by all living creatures in that world, and the curse of being invisible from Hitogami's view. However, it turned out that this is a result of a secret technique that allows him to reset when he fails a loop. If he fails and dies, he will keep looping his life until his mission to kill Hitogami is fulfilled. The human world, inhabited by every race, is now the world of Mushoku Tensei. Orsted, also known as the Dragon God, is the strongest dragon god, initially an antagonist. He nearly kills Rudeus twice due to their association. However, upon Rudeus discovering Hitogami's true nature, he becomes Orsted's subordinate, leading to Orsted becoming an ally and a major supporting character. Orsted possesses distinct features of the dragon race, and a curse that makes him feared and hated by all beings, given by his father. He holds the title of Dragon God, which is the second rank of the 7 great great world powers. His combat abilities are unmatched by any being. However, his mana recovery is extremely slow, forcing him to hold back his power to fight Hitogami in the future. Despite his immense power, Orsted is not invulnerable. There are times when Orsted is cornered. Having experienced countless time loops, Orsted's main goal is to eliminate Hitogami. His connection to Rudeus and the fate of Rudeus' descendants intertwine their roles in the story. His story is a major unresolved plot in Mushoku Tensei, hinting at his return in the sequel series. Did you know that at the beginning of every time loop, Orsted dedicates 10 years to honing his physical prowess? Having experienced life countless times, he finds that in each new loop, his physique resets to 0. That's why he invests 10 years to fortify his physical resilience before embarking on another cycle.
Did you know that Orsted required special artifacts to access the Void World, a realm where Hitogami is sealed? Sadly, obtaining these special artifacts involved the demise of their current holders. Unfortunately, these items are linked to the 5 Dragon Generals. In the current loop, Orsted has already vanquished all but 2 of them, Proteus and Laplace. These 2 individuals possess the remaining special artifacts necessary for Orsted to enter the Void World. Consequently, Orsted is patiently waiting for Laplace's rebirth. Rudeus also considered the situation with Rudeus. However, considering the timeline, it's likely that Rudeus may have already met his demise before that unfortunate situation unfolds.
After Hitogami's plan fell apart due to Rudeus from the future, Hitogami reappeared in Rudeus' dream, visibly frustrated. Recognizing that Rudeus' family might align with Orsted against him, Rudeus earnestly begged Hitogami to spare them. In reply, Hitogami posed a tough choice: kill Orsted. Left with no options, Rudeus sought help from his friends including Zanoba, Cliff, and even Nanahoshi. The battle commenced, with Nanahoshi guiding Orsted to an empty village. Rudeus set traps and launched magic attacks, but Orsted withstood them all. In the end, despite his efforts, Rudeus couldn't overcome Orsted and suffered significant injuries. At that critical moment, Orsted made it clear that he wouldn't let him live while allied with Hitogami. He suggested Rudeus switch sides and join him instead. Starting then, Rudeus stood by Orsted's side, becoming his subordinate and right hand. Did you know that when Luke seemingly became Hitogami's apostle, Orsted immediately suggested to Rudeus that he should be killed? Fortunately, Rudeus proposed an alternative and convinced Orsted not to act hastily. The reasoning behind this was that if Luke were to die, Ariel wouldn't have any motivation to become a queen, which wouldn't be beneficial for Orsted himself. When dealing with Hitogami's apostles, Orsted is genuinely impatient. If it weren't for Nanahoshi's involvement, Rudeus wouldn't have survived. Orsted's determination to eliminate Hitogami and his apostles is so intense that he would not hesitate to even take the life of a child. Furthermore, he regards the 5 Dragon Generals as mere NPCs and is willing to eliminate them to obtain an artifact that could transport him to the Void World where Hitogami resides. Having endured countless loops, it's only natural that Orsted has become incredibly impatient and rushed. Even the Dragon God has his stress limit. Did you know that Rudeus' children are immune to Orsted's curse? Orsted possesses a curse that instills fear in all living creatures in the Mushoku Tensei world. This is why he wears a helmet to mitigate the impact of his curse. Yet, Rudeus originates from a different world, making him immune to Orsted's curse. This immunity passes down to all of Rudeus' children. Additionally, Lucy, thinking Orsted was her father due to Rudeus rarely being at home, used to play with Orsted on occasion. Similarly, Lara takes great pleasure in frequently pranking Orsted. Did you know that after Lara had a great time playing in Orsted's office, Orsted observed her mischievous grin? He couldn't help but wonder about the reason behind her naughty expression. Upon returning to his office, Orsted discovered a bunch of durian fruits scattered all over his chair. As he began to clean up and collect the scattered fruit, he was in for a surprise. Just as he was about to place the bag in his desk drawer, 5 grasshoppers jumped out from inside. It took him a moment to realize that he had fallen victim to Lara's prank. Instead of getting upset, Orsted is actually smiled, finding the whole situation entertaining. Did you know that Orsted defeated Alexander in the same way? He defeated Rudius. In both instances, the opponents ended up kneeling and lost both of their hands. Interestingly, Orsted has a penchant for donutting his victims, creating a donut hole in their chests, a gruesome act he demonstrated when he pierced young Rudius. Fortunately, Orsted healed Rudius afterward. He repeated this method with Rada, the water god. Orsted's victories highlight a unique, albeit brutal, adherence to the philosophy of,
if you can't beat them, join them.
As for those who remain Hitogami apostles, their fate is simple.
Now you die.
Did you know that? While Orsted was recruiting numerous subordinates, Rudius decided to establish the Orsted Corporation. In order to confront Hitogami, Orsted needed to acquire the treasures of the 5 dragon generals, one of which belonged to Laplace. Orsted couldn't defeat Hitogami if he depleted his mana in the battle against Laplace. Recognizing this, Zanoba proposed recruiting companions independent of Orsted to strengthen their fighting force and gather allies, maintaining flexibility in their strategy. This is why Rudius founded Orsted Corp, an organization dedicated to assembling forces to support Orsted. In his ongoing battle against Hitogami, within Orsted Corp, Orsted serves as the president, and every staff member is considered crucial, including Ariel, Zanoba, Miko of Memory, Kalman III, and of course Rudius himself. The organization also has subsidiaries, such as the Rudo Mercenary Company. Thanks to all this, Rudius is no longer jobless.
Did you know that since working with Orsted, Rudius has become incredibly wealthy? When Rudius pledged to become Orsted's subordinate, it wasn't without compensation. Orsted generously rewarded him, even from the early stages. Orsted bestowed upon him a demon sword worth 1 million Asura coins, equivalent to 10 billion yen. This was just his initial payment. One can only imagine the substantial sum Rudius receives regularly. Orsted is the benevolent boss. One payment from him and you could retire for the rest of your life. And above all that, Rudius also enjoys additional income from various sources, including Rudo Mercenary Company, Zanoba Company, and even his condom innovation where he uses frog skin in his current world. Not only is he not jobless anymore, but he is also rich. Did you know that Orsted always provides Rudius with useful items? Whenever he travels on a mission, Orsted advises Rudius on what to use, what to bring, and what to wear, ensuring everything is helpful for him. It seems like Orsted can pull anything out of his pocket, making Rudius wonder if Orsted is secretly a robot cat from the 22nd century, a reference to the show called Doraemon, where a robot cat can pull any bizarre objects from his pocket. Even though Orsted's face is intimidating and doesn't resemble those friendly robot cats at all, his pocket is truly as useful as that of the robot cat from the 22nd century.
Did you know that among all of Orsted's loops, there are a few where he experiences the dumbest deaths? In one such loop, he met his demise by eating a poisoned fish. However, instead of learning his lesson, Orsted tried again in the other loops. Why? Because it was so delicious. It seems like even the mightiest dragon god also has a weakness, and that weakness is seafood. Did you know that before Orsted, there were 98 other dragon gods who attempted to defeat Hitogami? Orsted is the 100th dragon god. Before him, there were other dragon gods sent by the first dragon god with the goal of defeating Hitogami. However, none of them succeeded in defeating Hitogami, including Orsted himself. It is also worth mentioning that Orsted is considered the strongest dragon god, yet he has experienced more than 20,000 loops, and in each of those loops, he has failed to defeat Hitogami. Hitogami remained invulnerable until Rudius intervened. Orsted can be considered fortunate in his current loop, achieving a gold gacha with Rudius arriving and becoming his subordinate. Did you know that Orsted is not only the descendant of the first dragon god, but he is also descended from the original human god? Orsted's father, the first dragon god, married Lunaria, who is the daughter of the original human god. This makes Orsted a descendant of gods from both sides of his family.
Did you know that Laplace is supposedly acting as Orsted's older brother? Laplace was actually adopted by the first Dragon God and given a mission to assist Orsted in the human world against Hitogami. Essentially, his purpose was to mentor Orsted in the human world against Hitogami. However, Batagati, under orders from Hitogami, split him into two separate beings, Technique God Laplace and Demon God Laplace. It's ironic that Orsted is now pursuing one of these beings, Demon Laplace, to obtain an artifact necessary to reach Hitogami in the Void World. In Orsted's view, the one who was supposed to be his brother, mentor, has become nothing more than an NPC, who will drop a crucial item for reaching Hitogami.
Did you know that despite Orsted possessing vast knowledge from his world and gaining extensive experience through countless loops, he remains innocent to the terms and concepts Rudius creates based on his previous world? If Rudius frequently inquires about things he didn't know to Orsted, similarly, Orsted will also ask Rudius about something he doesn't know. This is because Rudius also originates from a different world. Therefore, every time Rudius coins terms that seem strange and unconventional, Orsted will seek to understand them and innocently inquire about them from Rudius. At one point, Rudius created a character named Cheddarman. Orsted heard the term during a conversation between Seagart and Alexander. Orsted then asked Rudius, "What is Cheddarman?" To which Rudius replied that it is a fictional hero character he created as a bedtime story for his children. He described Cheddarman as a cheese-themed hero who defeats villains and offers pieces of his own cheese head to hungry children, substituting the red bean paste found in his world with cheese. Orsted then learned something new.